Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am finally back. I know for you guys I might not even have missed a video because I've had some pre-filmed, but I am back. I haven't filmed for almost a full month, so this is going to be my first video back. And I thought before we get back to the regular scheduled programming of panning and all that kind of stuff, I just want to do a brief little sit-down video and talk you through my birth story. So before I jump into that and letting you know everything that happened when I gave birth to my daughter, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So again, I know this video probably isn't going to be for everyone, but I just wanted to do this because first of all, I love listening to birth stories. I watched birth stories way before I even became pregnant myself, and I find them really interesting, and I thought for you guys who want to know, could watch this video, and otherwise I will be back with regular panning videos very soon. I'm hoping to get back to normal like filming from this point onwards. We'll see how I'm able to keep up with it. I am gonna try to do every other day, which I have been posting for the last couple of years, but if I have to go down to once every 3 days or 3 times a week, something like that, I might have to do that. But again, we're just gonna have to see. I'm gonna give it a go, sticking to my normal schedule, but I don't really have anything else pre-filmed at the moment, so it does kind of like take into consideration whether I can keep up filming or not for now. But right now my daughter is sleeping, she's having a nap, so I thought I would do a quick little video now. I did do my makeup earlier today when she had her earlier nap, and now she's having an afternoon nap, so I thought I would again sit down and film. So let me jump into the birth story, but before I do that, a little bit of backstory. If you didn't see my I'm in labor video, I did talk about a little bit there, but I didn't mention this in the video, but I was actually scheduled for an induction on the 24th of June. I have my notes below me, but I was scheduled for an induction on the 24th of June. I was 39 weeks pregnant exactly that day, because I had something called intrahepatic cholestasis of pregnancy. I talked a little bit more about it in the other video, but because I had that, they didn't want me to go any further, so they put me in for an induction. So I kind of knew that I was going to hospital that day, which is also kind of helpful when I did all my pre-filming, because that meant that I almost had like a deadline when I needed my videos to be done. Of course, I could have gone into labor naturally before that point, but that was kind of the situation at the time. But before that point, on the 23rd, which was the Monday, I did actually have my midwife appointment. So for that, I had it at 11:30. I went in and I had my regular, it was actually my 38-week appointment. It was at my last day of 38 weeks, but I had it then. And when I was there, because I was also already kind of scheduled to have an induction the next day, we did say, if I'm able to do a sweep, I can have a sweep. So they did actually look and try to give me a sweep, but at the time my cervix was pretty closed, which meant they couldn't access and do a sweep. Also, this video is going to be quite, not graphic, but obviously it will be a bit more intimate, I guess, or some details that might not be for everyone, so just heads up. But if you ever watch any birth stories, you probably already know that. So that was like the 23rd. So obviously I didn't have any progression at all at that point. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm just gonna go in for the induction tomorrow. There's probably no chance I will start naturally now. So for the 24th, this was like my induction day. They asked me to give them a call at 8 a.m. in the morning, just to check when to come in. So I did that. But when I called, they said they were way too busy, so they asked me to call back later at like 2 p.m. the same day to check how like the ward was doing. So I called back at 2, and they said, we're still busy, but if you can come in between 5:30 and 6, that would be amazing. So that's what I did. So we drove to the hospital. It's only a 10-15 minute drive from our house, which is very nice and good for us. So we got there, and I think we were admitted to like my bed and everything in like a shared antenatal induction ward by 6 p.m. So that's kind of when the story starts off, I guess. But when I first got there, of course, I was like supposed to start all the induction, so the medication, I think oxytocin, and also I can't remember what it's called now, but it's a medication as well that you take to open your cervix, which I will put on screen. But that's what I was supposed to take, but since I got there at 6 p.m, they said that they were changing staff at 7, so the night staff. So they said, if you're okay to wait, it's probably better if we wait until the night staff comes, because otherwise we will hook you up. We will do the measurements, and then they will probably have to take over and remeasure everything, you know, afterwards. So I was like, no worries, I can wait for them. So I waited until 8 p.m, and that's when the night staff arrived. Well, they didn't arrive, I think it's 7, but they did like the handover and everything. So by 8 p.m, they came over to me and they went through the plan. And they also told me that basically they have to do like a baseline monitoring, so that's what the monitoring is for. They put on like a heartbeat monitor, and as well as like monitor to track any contractions going on, and just to get a baseline on where you're starting from, because any medication that you take can stress out your baby, and if you see that the heart rate is elevated, then they will, you know, counter it by stopping the medication or giving something else, or just, you know, whatever happens. But that's why they need a baseline. So they did that at 8 p.m. And she said that from that point onwards, they need to do a recheck of the, you know, baby's vitals and everything every 6 hours. But since it was 8 p.m, she said that normally in the UK, when you get admitted to be induced, you're not allowed to go home. However, she asked if I live close, and I said, yeah, 10-15 minute drive. She said, okay, I know that you're gonna have this baby in the next couple of days, so you're gonna need your sleep, and I'm happy for you to go home and sleep after I've done the initial, you know, examination, and then you can come back in 6 hours so I can do the next one. Just make sure to be back at that point. So that was really great. And so after going through all of that, they did actually put the monitor on me at 8:30 to get that baseline. And that was done about 9:15 in the evening. And surprising to me and to the midwife, I guess, was that I actually was having some small contractions on my own, which I wasn't sure. They asked me if I thought I had them, but I said I felt like a little bit of like tenseness, but I wasn't sure if that was his baby kind of arching her back or something like that. But that was contractions, which was really exciting. But it's also quite funny because the day before I had absolutely nothing going on. So she said that she was going to check me to see if I was dilated at all, just to make sure if the medicine, which I actually have noted here, it's called Pasirin, was the right thing for me, because again, that is supposed to kind of open your cervix and start contractions, and then oxytocin can be taken afterwards to continue those contractions. But she said that if I am kind of contracting on my own, then or like, you know, my cervix is expanding, they don't want to give me the medicine because they don't want me to contract too much. So they did the exam at 9:30, and I was actually dilated at that point, which was very exciting. I was about 1 to 2 centimeters, so not very much, but it was meaning that I was actually kind of starting labor on my own without any medication, which is amazing. And again, I did try to have the sweep done, but it was failed. I wasn't able to do it. So again, just kind of started on my own. And she did say that at that point she could actually access and go in and do a sweep, which could further help getting things along. And so she did do that. And then she put the monitor back on baby just to make sure baby was happy with everything that happened, all the examinations, the sweep, all of that kind of stuff. And then, you know, at that point, I took a blood test, all of my kind of stuff. And at 10:30, everything was done, all the measuring and monitoring of baby and all of that was good. So she said, you're clear, but your baby's happy. You know, we'll see what happens. We'll see if the contractions pick up or not. But in the meantime, you're allowed to go home. So we left the hospital and we were back home and in bed by about 11:30 p.m. She had asked us to be back at 3 a.m. just for the next round of monitoring. So we slept at home from about 11:30 to 2:30 a.m., which was great. I mean, not that many hours, but at least I got to sleep in my own house, which was amazing. So that was the 24th, the initial day of my induction. So at 3 a.m. on the 25th, we arrived back at the hospital, and you know, I am back in my bed. I still had my designated bed, which is great. So we left all our stuff there in the night, and all was good. And by 3:30, I was hooked up again, and they were monitoring baby. And also my contractions, and my contraction had started picking up, which was great, and she could see it on the monitor. They weren't like doing any more examination at this time, they were just kind of tracking me and baby. So we were just chilling in the hospital, and I was kind of watching, you know, things on my laptop, and I wasn't in like that much pain or anything at this point. I could definitely feel the contractions a bit more, but I wasn't really in pain, I would say, until around 4-5 a.m. The timelines coming up is going to be a bit vague because I ended up being in quite a lot of pain and my contractions were quite close together, so I just couldn't, I didn't have the mental capacity to like take notes for it. So by about 4 or 5 a.m. my contractions, like around that time, it started picking up quite significantly, and I asked around 5 a.m. for some painkillers, and they gave me some paracetamol to start. They said, you know, let's start from the bottom, work our way up. So at 5:15 I got some paracetamol tablets just to help with the like initial pain. And then at 5:45 a.m. I actually had some spotting / my waters, so it was like a little bit of like liquid coming out, and it had a little bit of like red to it, but I think that's normal after a sweep, so nothing too like alarming or anything. But that happened at 5:45. I said, you know, I think that's what happened, which is good because that means the labor is progressing. And progress it did, because at that point I started getting like more and more in pain. I actually started tracking my contractions. Let me pull up the app, see if I can still access the contractions that I've timed. I can, which is great. So I started tracking them at 7:01 a.m. and you know, at that point they lasted anything from 30 to a minute, like 30 seconds to a minute, and they were about 3 minutes apart, and that's obviously including the contractions, about 2 to 2.5 minutes apart. Like, well, the break was 2 to 2.5 minutes. So if I'm not making any sense, but that's kind of when I started tracking them, and I started tracking them because I could feel like they were coming quite close, and they were also becoming a bit more painful. And I've heard, you know, it's good to track them so they can kind of see how far you're progressing. And I had very consistent contractions from that point onwards. Yeah, they were very close, and by about 7:15, so only 15 minutes later, they started being, you know, less than every 2 minutes. Yeah, 1:48, 1:32, 1:57, 1:44, 2:08, 2:27. So like around a 2-minute mark between contraction. And again, that is including the minute-long contraction that I was having at this time. And some of them were even like 1.5 minutes. So very, very like consistent, and it started getting very painful. Again, I was timing them all, but it started getting very bad because I didn't really get a break in between. So I did get a lot of pain, and I know obviously, you know, labor is painful, and that was something that I was expecting anyway. And you know, I was breathing through the contractions, and you know, I did my breathing exercises, and it was working great. The hardest thing for me at this point was that, again, I didn't get a break because my contractions picked up very quickly, and they were coming again every 2 minutes, and I barely got a break. So how I would explain it is almost like the contraction came in and it was like a peak, so it was kind of, it went up, and then it was like really, really painful, and then it kind of started going down, and then that was your break in between. But the pain didn't really fully go away unless like early on, like it did kind of have time to go away fully. But what happened for me is kind of like contraction happened, very, very painful, started going down, and then while this was going down, the next contraction came in before this one had time to disappear. So I was still in pain when the next contraction came, and that was like the hardest part for me because I felt like I didn't get a break in between contractions. So I was like consistently in pain, so that was quite difficult. And I remember around maybe 7:30, so I've been having like quite, again, consistent contractions for half an hour without really getting a break in between them. I was asking for more painkillers, but at this point the new staff had just come in. I think actually it must have been, yeah, around that time, because The new staff came in at 7 and then they did their, you know, rounds. And I remember asking, and then they said, oh yeah, we're just gonna do our rounds with everyone. So they did like the handover. So the night staff told the day staff like what's going on, and then they did the rounds with everyone. So I kind of caught them and asked, can I have some more painkillers? And she said, yeah, I'm just gonna do my rounds, come back around. And this overall, so where I gave birth, I would need, like, everyone that I dealt with, apart from a handful of people, were absolutely amazing. I loved my experience. To be honest, throughout pregnancy and everything, I have loved my experience with the hospital I was in. And there was just, well, one person mainly, which is the one I'm going to talk about, and then another person which was like not super important, but this one person is the only one that I did not really enjoy during my labor process, because yeah, she wasn't very understanding, let's just say that. So like the night staff was amazing. My night nurse, my night midwife was amazing. She was like so on top of it. Like when I did my sweep, she was like, do you want some gas and air? Are you comfortable? Like, I'm happy to give you some. Like if you get uncomfortable at any point in time, just let me know. So she was very kind of understanding, and I was like, no, it's fine. I'm happy. We just breathe through it. But in hindsight, I wish I would have brought that gas and air in, because I would have needed later on. But yeah, she was amazing. She let us go home and sleep in our own bed. Super, super understanding. And I think everyone in this hospital has been amazing, apart from, again, this one person who is the morning staff that came on. So the midwife that came on in the morning, the one I asked for painkillers, is the one that I had a little bit of an issue with. But so I asked for painkillers, and she said I'm just going to finish the rounds. So that was around 7:30, and you know, time went on, and then I asked her again. She's like, yeah, it's fine. I'm gonna ask the doctors now to prescribe it to you, because since it's a stronger medication, they have to actually have a prescription. So she's like, I'll ask the doctors to do it now, but they also just came on, then day staff, so it might take some time. And I was like, that's fine. Just in a lot of pain, so you know, if you can hurry it up, that would be great. She's like, yeah. And then, you know, nothing happened. I had to wait, you know, even like longer than that. I think it got to like 8, and then we chased her again. So that'd been like an hour of quite consistent contractions that were very, very painful. I asked her, like, you know, how it's going. My partner, bless him, Mike, he was chasing her down too, and he told me in hindsight, like, she kind of almost rolled her eyes at us. But if you have given birth, having contractions that close together is quite intense. And yes, I know a lot of women do it without any pain medication, and honestly, I'm in awe of all those women. But I just knew going in that I didn't really have the desire to do it without pain medication. And of course, I was going to use any method that I could. I used like breathing techniques, I used like a birthing comb. I did what I could, but it was still very painful. So we chased her, and yeah, she kind of like, Mike caught her once like rolling her eyes at us, which was very, very frustrating. And again, I was not aware of this because I was just focusing on not being in pain. But long story short, we had to chase her so much, and she did not take it seriously. I kept asking her, like, can I have something in the meantime while we wait for, you know, the stronger medication? Can I have gas and air? They offered me that in the night, and she's like, yeah, we'll see if we can chase one down for you. And then I asked her again, and she was like, no, we're not allowed to have them in this department, which I don't really believe, because again, the night nurse had offered me that. But long story short, at 8:30, so like basically an hour after even asking for it, I got some codeine, which is a prescription painkiller, which, you know, is what I've had afterwards, like to help with pain management after giving birth, but it didn't really help much, let's say that. So I took it, and then she said, you know, it needs half an hour to work, and at that point, if you need more, we can give you more pain medication. But yeah, half an hour went, didn't really have any difference. So again, I've been going on a long time now without any pain medication really, apart from paracetamol. So a half hour after that, 9 a.m, I asked for more painkillers, and again, same story, took absolutely forever. Had to chase her over and over and over again, and eventually I did get some morphine tablets around 10:10, so you know, quite a lot of time afterwards. And just after I got those morphine tablets, again, a lot of things happened in here, but I just I don't remember. One thing that I don't have written down is they actually did examine me once more, but I don't really remember what they said because again I was in a lot of pain. But they did examine me, and when they did, some more of my waters came out, and this is kind of the start of, I guess, what happened in my birth story, I guess, and that is that there was some meconium in my waters. So if you're not aware of what that means, it basically means that when your baby is born, they have their first bowel movement, which is something called meconium, which is the first poop that you have, which is very kind of dark and like almost, it's like almost sticky. It's very unique, but some babies have that happen in the belly close to labor if they start getting a bit stressed. Well, I guess it could happen because of other reasons too, and that had happened. So what that means is that the risk for infection goes up because obviously that is something that isn't like sterile. It is, you know, bacteria in there, not much, but there is some bacteria, so it can mean to risk of infection. So then that means they have to monitor you more. But they did notice that, and again, I don't have the exact time for that because again, I was in a lot of pain and I wasn't able to take notes at that time. However, like I said, at 10:10 I got my morphine tablets, which was great. And at that point, I was basically ready to go. So they moved me to a labor ward at 10:25. So at that point, I actually got my private room. I got my private midwife, which was going to help me throughout my whole labor. And she also had a midwife student in there, and both of them were the most loveliest people. They were great. They were like, you know, super supportive. They were there for me the whole time, very similar to that night midwife, and again, the best experience with those two. But yeah, got into them. They helped me get gas and air almost straight away. So again, arrived at 10:25, got gas and air at 10:30, thank goodness, because the tablet painkillers really weren't helping me very much. So I got some gas and air, which again helped, but it just wasn't enough, and I think they could tell that I was in a lot of pain. And in my birth preferences, I already put down that I was happy to go to stronger pain medication if I wanted. So they did ask me if I wanted to have an epidural, and I already kind of knew that I was set on having one if I could, and if the pain got too much. And since I was already in a lot of pain and my contractions were so close together, already at not very much dilated, I just said, yeah, let's go ahead and have the epidural. I'd rather have it early so I don't have to like sit in pain for too long. I know that there's a risk of having epidural. It can slow down your labor, but again, because I was having contractions very close together, I didn't really feel like that was something that I was too scared of. So I asked for the epidural. Of course, they have like all of, you know, legal stuff going around with it. You have to, you know, read for the risks and all of that kind of stuff. They have to examine you. And then eventually they have to bring in the anesthesiologist, I think it's called, to come in and, you know, do the procedure, I guess. So eventually he came in, and I did get the epidural at 12:15, so just around midday. And let me just tell you, I was completely a new woman after that. I was, again, it was just like I was in like a haze. I don't remember much for those hours leading up to that point because I was in so much pain. But after getting the epidural, completely new woman, I could sit there and joke. I remember everything. I could still feel my contractions, but they weren't painful. Like there was a lot of, sometimes just a bit of tension. But honestly, life-changing. If you are someone who's thinking about it, I would recommend it if you are open to it. Of course, if you want to go ahead and like, if you want to do labor completely unmedicated or with not an epidural, 100% support that too. Who knows, if we have children in the future, maybe I will want to give it a go then. But having that epidural makes me feel like I could go through having a baby all over again, despite being in so much pain before. So definitely very happy that I got that. And again, it completely changed how I was feeling. So that kicked in quite quickly, even though I got it at 12:15. I think it took like 15-20 minutes for it to kick in. And so once it was kicked in, they did want to examine me again. They wanted to wait, of course, until I got that, because then it wouldn't be as uncomfortable. So they examined me at about 1:45, and at that point I was about 4 centimeters. And she said, you know, we can properly break your waters while we're in here, which apparently she said you have 2 like sacks of water. So the first one had already broken. That was like what I had seen earlier in the night. But then the second one was still intact. There was still a lot more waters in there, so she went in and she broke my waters. And it was quite funny because when that happened, we could actually hear a pop. I felt a pop like in my stomach, and we could hear like audible pop. And she said, like, she was like, my midwife was like very shocked because she said like she's only ever really heard that, I think maybe once before. And she was like a young midwife or anything, so it was quite interesting. She said it's very, very rare to actually hear a pop, but I had that, which was very interesting. She's like, it's almost like the movies when you had like hear like something and there's like a gush of water. She said it's very rare, but apparently I had that. So yeah, just interesting fact. And then the other catheter as well, just because you need to have that when you have an epidural. So that happened at 1:15. I had lunch, and you know, the day went on. We just hung out, we watched some stuff on my laptop, yeah, just chatted with the midwife, and again felt like a really new woman. It was great. And then, you know, nothing much to report. Didn't really have to have any more painkillers or anything because I have the epidural coming consistently. So you know, sometimes I had to top it up a tiny bit, but overall didn't really feel much at all during that time. At 4:45, I had another exam, and I was now like 6 centimeters, so I was still progressing quite consistently. And at this point, because of course we have a dog, as you know, Mike, my partner, he kind of asked like, can I go home? Should I go home now? Should I wait? What do you think? She's only 6 centimeters. And my midwife said, you know, you could wait, but sometimes things progress really quickly, so you never know. So maybe you just go now, and then if you need to go a second time later, maybe go later. So that's what we did. And also that time, by the way, on the 25th, we had my dog at the dog sitter. So when he asked like if he can go, he kind of needed to go, you know, not too late in the middle of the night or anything, because he needed to pick her up from the dog sitters. So at about 5, he actually left to go home and pick up our dog and drop her home. So that kind of was fine. I was still happy chilling with the midwives, all good. But at 5:15, so just after Mike left, again, we're only like a 10-15 minute drive from the hospital, so you know, he wouldn't probably be gone more than like 45 minutes. But at 5:15, I did do another little like examination. She thought I might have like more waters, but it was just baby's little hand. And everything was fine, but my temperature had actually started rising a little bit. So they continued to take new temperature, and maybe it's me because I had that high infection risk, and then all that kind of stuff. But my temperature had started rising a little bit, and it was 37.4, which isn't like super high, but it was rising. But like all good. However, at 5:30, my midwife came in to me and she said, so listen, no one's talked to me yet about this, but I just overheard the doctors, and I want to be transparent with you because I rather you know now. Of course, nothing's like, this is just what they're speculating. But your case is kind of a bit of a talk of the maternity labor ward at the moment, because, you know, again, the infection risk, also being supposed to have an induction but not having to be induced, all that kind of stuff. You're a bit of a, you know, conversation at the moment. So she said, I overheard all the doctors talking in, you know, their room about your case and about your temperature rising, and they're talking about potentially asking you to do a C-section. And again, she's like, nothing's sure, I just heard this, but just giving you a heads up in case. So nothing set, don't panic or anything, but maybe start preparing for it in case they want to do that. And it wasn't that much like further after that point. I think, yeah, it was, I can't remember exactly what time, but it was not much longer after that. I think it must have been just after that, 5:45 maybe. I was having dinner, so they brought me dinner because Mike wasn't around, so they were like, let's get you some food from the dinner so you don't miss it. And I had just gotten it in, I was just starting to like eat a tiny bit of it. I hadn't eaten much of it, but like a tiny bit. And then my main midwife came in again and she said, let's just take this away from you for now. And I kind of had an inkling what that meant, because I know that if you want to go for C-section, you are not supposed to eat. Any operation, you're not supposed to eat before. So I kind of said, does that mean they want to do a C-section? And she said, yeah, I heard them speak. Again, the doctor want to come and talk to you directly, but I think they are leaning towards asking you to have a C-section just because of the infection risk. Your temperature is going up. We can see that baby's heartbeat is going up a little bit too, which means that she is getting a little bit stressed. Nothing is like too alarming at the moment, but considering that you're not further along at the moment, you're only 6 centimeters, we don't want to like risk anything. So the doctors will come in and talk to you, but that is, you know, probably what the situation is. And I asked, you know, what is there anything else? Like, I've heard that you can take antibiotics to get the fever down and the, you know, the infection down. Is that something that you would do? And she said we could do that, but honestly probably wouldn't like act in, like, not in time, but it wouldn't probably act fast enough. And with the infection, you're probably not far along, like dilated, for it to be worth it. So I asked, you know, okay, honestly, like what would you say is the percentage chance or risk that they want to do a C-section? And she said probably 95%. And at that point I just knew that it was gonna happen. And like, I wasn't against the C-section. I had said from the start, if that's what needs to happen, that's what needs to happen. But I was very disappointed, I think, at the time, because, and partly because I had come in for the induction and then my body only started on its own, and I was just so proud of that. I was just so excited because when the induction was scheduled, I kind of already felt like I lost that going into labor naturally and experiencing that, which I'm still grateful for that I had, like, I got to do, because I still got to do that. But I was very proud that my body did that on its own. So then having to do the C-section was just kind of, I felt like my body wasn't following through on the labor, which was sad. So I was very disappointed in the moment, and I think, you know, it was quite a stressful situation. Again, I wasn't like not necessarily upset about having a C-section. It was just disappointing, I think, because it wasn't fully what I expected. But that happened, and again, during all of that, Mike wasn't in the hospital because he was home with the dog. So we were just kind of chilling, waiting, and you know, time went on, and I was like, okay, he probably needs to come back, because I was like, can we wait until Mike's back? They're like, yeah, of course, we're not going to go ahead without him. It's not like it's urgent. Anytime it's not a scheduled C-section, it does count as an emergency C-section. So that's kind of what happened to me, what is classified as. But it wasn't like an emergency. But yeah, so we waited for him to come back, and he wasn't really coming back. So I called him, and he was like, you know, I was like, hey, how are you going? He's like, oh yeah, I just got back, I just walked Lexi. I've been chilling with her a little bit at home, but I'm gonna leave in a second, because, you know, I chilled with her before, like, so she wouldn't be alone for so long. And I was like, okay, that's great, but, and I said, you should probably make your way back to the hospital, because there is talk about C-sections. So he did come back, and at that point, while he was driving back, the doctors came in, and they had like all these legal forms they need to sign. And I kind of asked if we could wait to go through all of the risks and stuff before, like, until Mike got back. But they said, unfortunately not. When he gets here, it's probably going to be go time. So he got there, and that kind of is what happened. They did roll me in. Again, I'm not exactly sure about timelines, but it was probably about, I don't know, 6:30. No, it must have been before 6:30, but 6:15 maybe they started rolling me in. And I was, you know, I was very overwhelmed at the time. I came into the operating room. Also, I've never had an operation in my whole life, so that was a completely new experience. But yeah, they rolled me in. They did all of the, like, top up of epidural. They had to, like, see that I was numb enough everywhere. So the anesthesiologist did her exam of, like, you know, she has like a cold spray, like, and then they make sure that you can't feel the cold, because apparently pain and cold are like the same sensory. So if you can't feel the cold, you won't feel pain. Apparently that's how they tested. But yeah, they did that. They had to give me, like, you know, all of the medication that's needed, since I think also at this time I am absolutely terrified of needles. By the way, I have a phobia of needles. I can get through it if I just get to, like, breathe before they do it and say, like, I'm fine now. But I get, like, I hyperventilate and panic if someone is gonna, like, poke me with a needle, if I don't get to, like, have a breather first. which has been great for European pregnancy because you have so many injections. But I had one of my, what's it called, one of the needles going into your veins here. I can't remember the cannula on this arm, but that one actually detached. So they tried to put through like liquid to rinse out the needle and everything before giving me medication in this arm, but it was just swelling up my wrist because it had dislodged from my vein. So then they had to take this one out while putting in a new one here. And if you ever had those, they hurt so bad to put in and take out. So they were trying to take one out and put another one in, and I just panicked and I was like crying because I was just overwhelmed. I wasn't like scared or anything, I was just very overwhelmed. And I was like, can I just have a breather? Can you do one at a time? And they're like, no, we need to do this now because, like, you know, if your blood pressure drops, we need to be able to give you medication straight away. And I was just panicking. So it was very stressful when I first got there. But eventually I got on medication, I was done, and they went ahead with the C-section. And well, like as soon as that started happening, I kind of calmed down. I think, again, I wasn't scared of the C-section itself. I think I was just very overwhelmed, and everything happened so fast. From the time they said C-section might be on the table until it actually happened, it was just so quick. And especially since after Mike arrived back to the hospital, everything was just like go, go, go. And I think I didn't have time to process it enough. So I think that's why I was like crying and quite panicky for like a little while. But as soon as everything was like hooked up and I was laying there, I felt quite calm. I know Mike was probably, I think he was more scared than I was at that time. He was scared that something was going to go wrong. And obviously as well, Pavey was quite stressed because her heartbeat was going up. And that's why they wanted to do the C-section. But I felt fine. And yeah, then I went through with the C-section. Mike was with me the whole time. I was obviously awake for it. My midwives were there, and bless my midwives, they were amazing, honestly. Again, both the midwife student and the main midwife was with us, and they were actually supposed to leave. I think their shift finished at 7, so they were supposed to like do the handover, everything for the new shift. But they stayed with us even after the shift ended, which was amazing, just to be there for me and not have like, you know, leave and see through with everything. But yeah, they were great, and Mike was, bless him, he was like crying because he was scared, but he was hiding it from me. I didn't even notice he was, but he told me afterwards, and like the midwife student was sitting there with him, kind of like joking to calm him down. And it was great because he realized that if there was like, you know, a scary situation, then she probably wouldn't be joking, so it really helped him calm down. So honestly, amazing staff, couldn't be happier with them. But yeah, then everything went down, and my daughter was born at 2 minutes to 7 p.m. on June 25th. So that is kind of what happened, and that is how I ended up having my daughter. Again, didn't go down how I planned, but honestly don't care. I was born via C-section, actually a proper emergency C-section. Not a story, but my mom was actually, you know, put under and very emergency. My brother was born with C-section, so it's not like unfamiliar to me. But yeah, that's kind of what happened. And honestly, the moment she was born, I didn't care anymore. I don't care that I had a C-section. I'm quite happy with how everything went. I'm very happy with my birth. Like, I'm not traumatized by it. I'm really grateful for everything that happened, the staff that was there, and everyone who supported me through it. So honestly, couldn't be happy with it. So yeah, that is kind of my birth story. And you know, afterwards I got to meet her. She is amazing. She is now almost a month old. I'm filming on the 21st of July. So she is 3 weeks and 5 days today. And yeah, been having the best time getting to know her. She is amazing. I might bring her out for you to meet her in a second. She's sleeping currently, so I have to wait for her nap to finish, but otherwise, yeah, I might bring her out so you can see her. But yeah, she's great. She's treating us amazingly. She sleeps, knock on wood, very well throughout the night. She's harder to put down throughout the day, which might be interesting with my filming, but she usually has at least 1-2 hour nap throughout the day, so fingers crossed I can keep up with filming. But yeah, very happy. Motherhood is great. My recovery has been super smooth, even though I had a C-section for the first couple of not even a full week, and I had a bit of pain, but I got pain medication for all of that, and honestly feel great. Recovery is supposed to be 6 weeks, but I feel basically back to normal already, and still taking it very easy though, so don't worry. But yeah, very just happy. Life has been amazing, and I'm just super happy to be a mom and to have my daughter here. It's crazy that, you know, it's a month ago I was still pregnant with her, and that she's the one who was in my belly the whole time. I'm sure if you ever had kids you probably had the same, but yeah, very happy. And she is just such a character already. Yeah, we love her very much, and yeah, that is, I think, everything that I wanted to share for this birth story. And I will bring her out to get her, so I will insert that now. So yes, here we have my little daughter. This here is my daughter. Her name is Indy. That's the name we decided to go with. Yeah, I mean, you could think it's for my love Indy eyeshadows, but I've had this name on my list for a long time. Yeah, so her name is Indy, middle name, sorry, Indy, and then her middle name is Ray. So that is her name. She just woke up again from a nap. This is her. And again, we love her very much. She has changed our lives, and I am enjoying motherhood so much. But yeah, I just wanted to share her. She's not going to be a massive part of my channel like all the time. It's not like I'm going to turn into a baby channel or anything. I just wanted to get this one video up for those people who are interested in, you know, meeting her. And she's to make me also newborn grunts, I'm sorry. But yeah, no, for the people who wanted to meet her and hear about my birth story. But I am gonna get back to my panning content very soon. Yeah, again, I just wanted to kind of make this my first video back. So I hope you enjoyed it if you decided to watch it. And again, this is Indy right here. Yeah, I am very excited to share her with you. Finally, it's been a long road. But yeah, we're very happy. So I hope you guys have an amazing day wherever you are, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye guys!